For 4 days, I spent countless hours watching and waiting, but saw nothing. Weeks before, the fields were full of deer. Now, not even a track. Unfortunately, the night of day 5, I found out the hard way why the deer were nowhere to be found. After a long night of wind, sleet, and insomnia, I would eventually get to sleep in the cabin that night, though the thought of a tree falling on my cabin with me in it never fully left my mind. Later on the next morning, I decided to run some errands, spend some time with the family, and pick up the last remaining supplies I needed to finish out the week. With such an uneventful day, nothing could have prepared me for the events that would unfold later that night.
So I'm just sitting here kind of hanging out, and I wondered why I have not seen any deer. Well, I saw that doe and that fawn the very first day. I wondered why I had not seen anything since then. And then last night happened. And now I totally get it. What happened last night? Well, about 10:30 came out here. I had some stuff in the back of the Jimmy, had the propane tank. I've also got a cooler and a Rubbermaid bin in here to store my food and beverages in. Hopefully it'll keep some things from freezing solid. I doubt it at this point, but we'll have to see. So yeah, I ended up coming out here about 10:30 last night. And I get out of the vehicle after backing up to the cabin, and I had that feeling where, the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. Just something didn't feel right. But I've been in the woods so many times before, I figured, well, what's the big deal? I've got literally at this point in 37 years of life, I have literally thousands of hours logged in the woods. So I don't think anything of it. I start unloading stuff, take a load in on the way to pick up my second load. Reason for the caffeine. To go to pick up my second load and bring it in, I hear something rustling in the brush. And I think, okay, squirrel, bird, maybe something, I don't know. I don't think anything of it. If you're staying the night in the woods and you're going to be jumpy over every little thing that makes noise in the brush, you're going to have a long freaking night and you're never going to enjoy yourself. The boogeyman's got to go sayonara, okay? Can't think like that and be in the woods. So I bring that load in, and I hear something scurry on the other side of the cabin. And I think, okay, well, this is weird, but okay, let's just keep moving. And I get to the vehicle, and I pull out my cooler and my Rubbermaid tote. And from that moment, the woods came alive. I had wolves all around my cabin. Some were within 10 yards of me, some were within 25 yards of me. Made eye contact with 2 or 3 of them, actually. And I grabbed my stuff and ran the cabin and locked the door. And they proceeded to come up to the cabin, start scratching around. One of them bumped the door a couple times, bumped the side of the cabin a couple times. And so I sit down and I think, okay, well, what are my options? Well, option A was actually this here. This is my Glock 19 with the Streamlight TLR7A tack light. This is my everyday carry weapon. Usually don't leave the house without this little bad boy. So there was one option. And then also, I keep in here in my cabin locked up, usually, a revolver. In particular, it is a Smith & Wesson Model 640, 357 Magnum. I carry 157 grain hollow points from Hornady in it. So I had both of those options, but the revolver is really not going to be a good option. It's going to blow out my eardrums, and I'm probably going to miss everything I'm shooting at. So I grab the Glock 19. I think, okay, well, what do I need to do next? Well, the front driver's side door was open on my vehicle, and so was the back hatch. So I'm sitting here watching this, and I can see them pacing around the cabin, which, okay, let me give you a little context about myself and wolves. When in northern Wisconsin, we've got a lot of wolves. You talk to ranchers, you talk to farmers, they're always seen up here. I've had encounters with wolves. Closest encounter I've ever had, I guess 2 encounters prior to this, was I was over on my wife's grandmother's property putting up a canvas hunting blind one night after work. This is probably about 4 or 5 years ago, yeah. And I'm putting up the bars and everything, and then I hear something sniffing around, around the outside of the tent, outside the canvas blind. And I think to myself, well, what's my Labrador doing out here? Because usually I would take him out there with me, but it clicked like, oh, that's not my Labrador. And I knew that the pack that lives out here had pups the previous spring. So I checked my rifle, make sure that it's loaded and good, and I come out of that blind and I bring the rifle up and around, and right in front of me, about 10 to 20 yards, runs I'd say possibly juvenile adolescent wolf, probably about 50, 60 pounds maybe. And he runs away from me. And I think to myself, okay, this is obviously not a lone wolf. The others are definitely out there. What am I going to do here? So what I ended up doing was slowly walking the quarter to third of a mile from the spot where my blind was back to the vehicle. So I get back to the vehicle. I'm disassembling my rifle, putting it away. And then you hear the alphas howl. You then hear the betas. You then hear the juveniles. I went back the next day. They scratched up the area around my blind and peed on it. And they were just wanting to make sure that their territory was respected. At no point in time did they come after me. At no point in time were they hunting me. They let me have my space, and I let them have theirs. Likewise, a couple years later, I'm walking out to where my deer stand is, which actually is just probably about 10 to 20 yards to my left over here. Yes, I've been scouting out this particular spot for a cabin for quite a while. But I was walking out to my stand, and I was just going to sit there. It was a nice night, kind of warm. And so I figured it'd be a nice night to sit out and just observe nature some. And I got about halfway out here on foot, and I pan over with my flashlight, and there is a wolf. He was about 25 yards away. I looked at him, he looked at me. I pulled out my gun, which unfortunately I had not gone back to the house and traded this one out. I had a Ruger LCP, Chamberlain 380 ACP. And yeah, it's not a good caliber to go up against anything really. But I had my flashlight up, had the pistol up, and I looked at him, he looked at me, I talked to him, and I slowly backed away. I got about another 30, 40 yards from him and began to and I turned my back to him, walked back to the house. So when I say that I have experience dealing with wolves, out here. That's no exaggeration. It's no falsehood. I've seen them. I've heard them. I've camped out here, had them be within maybe 100 yards of my encampment, but they've never come that close. And when I come out here, I generally try to make a lot of noise. That keeps all the critters that I like and dislike away, frankly. I don't want to deal with critters. I don't want critters trying to get in my cabin. I don't like critters, trying to cause me any problems. I definitely don't want the big ones. So I try to just make noise to keep them away as much as I possibly can. But oftentimes that does the trick. But last night was just, it was different. It was really different. I've never seen behavior like that exhibited from wolves in northern Wisconsin. After about 30 minutes, when they didn't cool down and didn't, sorry, my wife just sent me a message. I was reading that on the screen. I waited about 30 minutes for them to cool down, and they didn't cool down. So I called my wife, told her to drive the other SUV we have out here, and have music blaring. Of course, my wife has to have a sense of humor. So she was playing a song, I think it was called The Werewolf. So that was playing. And I can't remember the other song that she played, but it was basically wolf-themed music. And I told her, just blare the music, have your lights on bright, make as much noise as you can. Because all I've got to do is get to my vehicle and drive away. But I'm not about to open that door when they've been nudging the door and nudging the side of the cabin. And so she comes up. I go out. I have my Glock 19, the tack light on, panning around. And just as I'm about to I get in my vehicle, I decide to walk over and talk to my wife. And I'm walking back to my vehicle, and I see one about 10 yards in the trees creeping up. And, of course, I put my gun pointed at him, and I just start talking to him. I don't want to shoot him. I don't want to shoot any of these animals, frankly. It's too much dadgum paperwork, but they're beautiful creatures, and they have their place in nature. I mean, heck, the only reason why I deer hunt is to put meat in the freezer. Otherwise, these are beautiful, majestic creatures. It's just I'm not willing to pay $6 a pound for beef this year. So I'd like to get a deer. But anyway, so I'm walking up trying to get in my vehicle. I see him there, and I'm talking to him. He eventually backs away and hop in my vehicle and drive back to the house. And as I did some research, I found that if they've made a kill near your camping area, your blind, your cabin, whatever, they will generally be very aggressive and very territorial. And sure enough, I came out this morning. You can't see it anymore because it's snowed over it now. But there was a carcass in the ravine, only about 30 yards from the back of my cabin. So, I'm probably not getting a deer this year, as unfortunate as that is. I am probably not getting a deer because the deer are not stupid. They are not going to stick around in a place where they are going to feel threatened. So, anyway, yeah, so this is, like I said, we're on day 6 of the hunt. And it's been a few days since I could be out here. I haven't seen anything, and I don't expect to see anything at this point because the deer are not stupid. They're not going to come around where the wolves are hanging out. So, last night was scary, and it takes a lot to scare me in the woods. And I know people in the comments may say something to the extent of, well, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. And 9 times out of 10, I agree with you. 100%. Okay? Most of the time, I agree with you. And I'm still going to tell my little girl whenever we are watching Frozen and that scene with the wolves comes up, I'll tell her, wolves don't act like that. Wolves do not hunt you. At no point last night did I necessarily feel like I was being hunted. Granted, that's mostly because I've studied wolf behavior because I've had to, because I hike and hunt and camp amongst them. I never felt like I was being hunted. I just felt like they were being territorial. If they had wanted to hunt me and kill me, they would not have howled before. But what they wanted to do was get close enough that they could howl let me know they're there. Let me know to leave them alone. And be close enough that if I didn't, they could do something about it to protect their kill. So, where I do think that this year's hunt is going to ultimately be unsuccessful, it's always nice to come out in nature, to be able to sit and relax and observe. And I hope that's something that's never lost on me or you guys as well. So, all right, guys, I'll catch you later. See ya.